Chapter 4. Caitlin hesitated, still looking down the stairs. Then she gathered her self-possession and slowly walked back into the room. Lewis and Anna were in the alcove, looking out the window. "He's here," Lewis said excitedly, and brought his camera up. "That's got to be him." "Who's here?" Caitlin asked, hoping no one would look at her too closely. She felt flushed. "Mr. Zaitz," said Lewis. "Joyce said he had a limo." A black limousine was parked outside the house, one of its rear doors open. A white-haired man stood beside the door, dressed in a great coat, which Caitlin thought must be terribly hot on this Californian afternoon. He had a gold-top cane, a real gold-top cane, Caitlin thought in fascination. "Looks like he's brought some friends," Anna said, smiling. Two large black dogs were jumping out of the limo. They started for the bushes, but came back at a word from the man and stood on either side of him. "Cute," Caitlin said, "but what's that?" A white van was turning in the driveway. Lettering on its side read Department of Youth Authority. Lewis brought his camera down, looking awed. "Geez, that's the Californian Youth Authority." "Which is?" "It's the last stop. It's where they put the bad boys. The hardcore kids who can't make it at any of the regular juvie places." Anna's quiet voice said, "You mean it's jail?" "My dad says it's the place for kids who are on their way to state prison. You know, the murderers and stuff." "Murderers?" Kay exclaimed. "Well, what's it doing here then? You don't think—" She looked at Anna, who looked back, serenity a bit clouded. Clearly, Anna did think. They both looked at Lewis, whose almond-shaped eyes were wide. "I think we'd better get down there," Caitlin said. They hurried downstairs, bursting out onto the wooden porch and trying to look inconspicuous. No one was looking at them anyway. Mr. Zaitz was talking to a khaki-uniformed officer standing by the van. Caitlin could only catch a few words of what was said. Judge Baldwin's authority, and CYA award, and rehabilitation. "Your responsibility," the officer finished, and stepped away from the van's door. A boy came out. Caitlin could feel her eyebrows go up. He was startlingly handsome, but there was a cold wariness in his face and movements. His hair and eyes were dark, but his skin was rather pale. One of the few people in California without a tan, Caitlin thought. "Chiaroscuro," she murmured. "What?" Lewis whispered. "It's an art word. It means light and shade, like a drawing where you only use black and white." As Caitlin finished, she suddenly felt herself shiver. There was something strange about this boy, as if he weren't quite canny, her mind supplied. "At least that's the phrase people back home used to use about you, isn't it?" The van was driving off. Mr. Zaitz and the dark-haired boy were walking up to the door. "Looks like we've got a new housemate," Lewis said under his breath. "Oh boy." Mr. Zaitz gave a courtly nod to the group on the porch. "I see you're here. I believe everyone has arrived now. If you'll come inside, we can commence with the introductions." He went in, and the two dogs followed him. They were Rottweilers, Caitlin noticed, and rather fierce-looking. Anna and Lewis stepped back silently as the new boy approached, but Caitlin held her ground. She knew what it was like to have people step back when you walked near them. The boy passed very close to her, and turned to give her a direct look as he did. Caitlin saw that his eyes weren't black, but a very dark grey. She had the distinct feeling that he wanted to unsettle her, to make her look down. "I wonder what he did to get in prison," she thought, feeling chilled again. She followed the others into the house. "Mr. Zaitz," Joyce said happily from the living room. She caught the old man's arm, smiling and gesturing with enthusiasm as she spoke to him. Kate's attention was caught by a blonde head near the stairs. Rob Kessler had a duffel bag, her duffel bag, slung over his shoulder. He saw the group that had just come in, and started towards them. And then he stopped. His entire body had stiffened. Caitlin followed his gaze down the foyer, to the new boy, who was equally stiff. His dark grey eyes were fixed on Rob with complete attention and icy hatred. His body was held as if ready for an attack as Rob came closer. One of the two Rottweilers by Mr. Zaitz began to growl. "Good dog, Carl," Lewis said nervously. "You," the new boy said to Rob. "You," Rob said to the new boy. "You two know each other?" Caitlin said to both of them. Rob spoke without looking away from the other boy's pale, wary face. "From a ways back," he said. He let the duffel bag down with a thump. "Not a long enough ways," the other boy said. In contrast to Rob's soft southern tones, his voice was harsh and clipped. Both dogs were growling now. "Well, there goes any chance of harmony between housemates," Caitlin thought. She noticed that Mr. Zaitz and Joseph broke off talking and were looking at the students. "We all seem to be together," Mr. Zaitz said rather dryly, and Joyce said, "Come over here, everybody. This is the moment I've been waiting for." Rob and the new boy slowly turned away from each other. Joyce gave the group a brilliant smile as they gathered around. Her aquamarine eyes were sparkling. "Kids, it's an honour and a privilege to introduce you to the man who brought you all here, the man who's responsible for this project. This is Mr. Zaitz." Caitlin felt for a moment as if she ought to applaud. Instead, she murmured "hello" with the others. Mr. Zaitz bent his head in recognition, and Joyce went on. "Mr. Zaitz, these are the troops. Anna White-Raven from Washington." The old man shook hands with her, and with each of them as Joyce introduced them. Lewis Chow from California, Caitlin Fairchild from Ohio, Rob Kessler from North Carolina, and Gabriel Wolfe from here and there. "Yeah, depending on when the charges are pending," Rob drawled, not quite aloud. Mr. Zaitz gave him a piercing look. Gabriel has been released into my custody," he said. "His parole allows him to go to school. For the rest of the time he's confined to this house. He knows what will happen if he tries to violate these conditions. Don't you, Gabriel?" Gabriel's dark grey eyes moved from Rob to Mr. Zaitz. He said one word, expressionlessly. "Yes." "Good." Mr. Zaitz looked at the rest of the group. "While you're here, I expect you all to try to get along. I don't think any of you can realize, at your age, just how great a gift has been given to you. Your one job here is to see that you use that gift wisely and make the most of it." Now for the pep talk, Kate thought, studying Mr. Zaitz. He had an impressive shock of white hair on his handsome old head and a broad and benevolent brow. Caitlin thought suddenly, "I know what he looks like. He looks like little Lord Fauntleroy's grandfather, the Earl." But the Earl wasn't giving any ordinary pep talk. "One thing you need to realize from the start is that you're different from the rest of humanity. You've been chosen, branded. You'll never be like other people, so there's no reason even to try. You follow different laws." Caitlin felt her eyebrows pulled together. Joyce had said similar things, but somehow Mr. Zaitz's words had another tone. She wasn't sure she liked it. "You have something inside you that won't be repressed, a hidden power that burns like a flame," he went on. "You're superior to the rest of humanity. Don't ever forget that." Is he trying to flatter us? Kate wondered. Because if he is, it isn't working. It all sounds hollow somehow. You are the pioneers in an exploration that has infinite possibilities. The work you do here may change the way the entire world looks at psychic powers. It may change the way the human race looks at itself. You young people are actually in a position to benefit all humankind. Suddenly, Kate felt the need to draw. Not the ordinary need, like the desire she'd had to draw Lewis and Anna. This was the need that came with an itch in her hand, and the internal shiver that meant a premonition. But she couldn't just walk away while Mrs. Zaitz was talking. She glanced around the room in distraction, and met Gabriel's eyes. Right now those eyes looked dark and wicked, as if something in Mr. Zaitz's speech amused him in a cynical way. With a shock, Caitlin realised that he looked as if he also found Mr. Zaitz's words hollow, and the way he was gazing at her seemed to show that he knew she did too. Caitlin felt herself flushing. She looked quickly back at Mr. Zaitz, freezing her face into an interested, deferential expression. After all, he was the one paying for her scholarship. He might be a little eccentric, but he obviously had a good heart.